Pepper says, are you ready to start decluttering some craft supplies? I know I am. For today, we are going to be working on the hoarded craft stash down here in the basement. And last week, we started with our first couple of tubs. And of course, we're going to continue down the row. That way, we're not overwhelming ourselves.
Hello everyone! So as we're decluttering and going through all of the crafts, I'm going to be talking about how to declutter an overwhelming amount of stuff. And of course, I'm going to be using logical tactics, but I'm also going to be really addressing the behavioral and emotional tactics as well. Because I'm hoarding disorder. I hold on to all of this stuff because I'm emotionally attached to it upon a bunch of other reasons. But at its core, I'm emotionally attached to it. So what I'm going to be talking about is creating a decluttering toolbox. Now, when I say a decluttering toolbox, that's inspired by what in therapy they kind of call your coping toolbox. One of my sons is very high on the autistic spectrum with a lot of anxiety and ADD. And years ago, when we had him in his therapy, they created a coping toolbox for him when he started feeling extremely anxious. And in that toolbox was a little bin of fidget toys, different textures, there was a soothing stone, there was different coping mechanisms for him to keep his hands busy with so that he could self-soothe and get through the emotions of whatever had triggered his anxiety. So I thought, I should really start curating my own decluttering toolbox to self-soothe the anxiety so that I can then declutter in a successful manner. And to everyone, that's going to look a little different, but I'm going to offer different suggestions as to what could work as we start to create our decluttering toolbox.
Now, I'm not going to have a little bin of fidget toys as my decluttering toolbox, but what I am going to use is a journal that I already have and writing down the suggestions that work for me. That way, if I am feeling anxious about decluttering, I can pull my journal and self-soothe with all the tactics that have worked personally for me. And the first tactic that worked for me for recovering my hoarding disorder was baby step decluttering. I started with what I knew I could emotionally handle. If I felt like I could only handle one box in an entire room of hoarded items, that was okay because I was going to honor my own boundary and I was going to honor where my nervous system was registering at. So if it felt that I could only do one box, I was going to self-soothe by reassuring my anxiety that that was all I was going to do and that I was not going to feel guilty that I wasn't doing 2 or 3 or 4. I was going to love myself that I actually got over the fear of even starting, because sometimes that's the hardest hurdle, is getting over the overwhelming emotion to start. And since I had gotten past that, to be able to start with one box, I was going to congratulate myself for getting to that point. And when I completed decluttering that one box, it gave my nervous system new data that I can declutter and I'm still safe if I let these items go. We're recoding that nervous system to feel calm. That way, the next time I decide to declutter, it won't be as overwhelming because I removed some of the fear of it. And I already had an experience of where I felt good about myself and I was successful in doing so. My favorite saying is, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with just one step. And I feel like whenever we're trying to break a habit or reach a goal that has some emotional obstacles, take that first baby step that feels comfortable for your personal baseline. My second decluttering toolbox tip that I have is Never force yourself to let anything go that you are not ready to let go of. Again, we're working with emotions and regulating our nervous system. So if we force ourselves or have someone else force us to let go of something, what's going to happen? We're going to have a negative connotation to decluttering. It's only going to reinforce that fear of, I don't want to declutter. It's too much stuff, it's too much work, and it's not going to be a good experience. The emotion of feeling overwhelmed is stemming from a source of fear and feeling like things are out of your control. And that is when it can set our nervous system into panic, anxiety, depression, procrastination. This is the source that we're addressing. And this is also where we're going to regain our control. We're going to self-soothe our nervous system by giving it a predictable outcome. And that is, I'm not going to force myself to let go of anything that I'm not emotionally ready to let go of yet. That calms my nervous system. So that way, I can go into step number 3, which is declutter the easiest thing that you can let go of. I know that I'm not going to start with something that's still sentimental and try and have a mental battle within myself that, yeah, you should let this go. I'm not even going to look at those items. I'm going to look at what am I least attached to? Oh, this piece of ribbon. I'm not really feeling attached to this. This is my easy win. I am going to feel good about this so that I can continue on to finding other easy things to let go of, to get that decluttering momentum going. Now I'm starting to build decluttering confidence because I'm finding things that I can let go of. And again, we're reconditioning our nervous system that this is a good experience so that future declutters will also have the same predictable outcome. These strategies apply to people with hoarding disorder and even people who do not have hoarding disorder because we're addressing that overwhelming emotion. The only difference between a hoarder and a non-hoarder is going to be time and how long it will take for someone to clean out a space. A non-hoarder might be able to tackle an entire corner and get rid of 3/4 of the stuff, where someone on the hoarding disorder spectrum can only handle one drawer, letting go of maybe 2 things. If you are on the hoarding disorder spectrum, please do not put pressure on the time that it takes you. We're not in a race. What we're doing is that we're healing and recovering our mental disorder. By giving yourself that grace and self-love to honor your emotions, it's what's going to keep your nervous system calm. That way, you can take that next baby step and declutter maybe a few more things next time. What we're going to do is be appreciative and feel accomplished for anything that we let go of. The next tip that I have in my decluttering toolbox is breaking it down into categories. I first really learned this through Marie Kondo, and I believe that's why her popularity skyrocketed, other than the fact she was probably the sweetest human being you ever met. But separating it into categories like we're doing here, doing all of the craft supplies, gives me some predictability. And predictability removes that emotion of feeling overwhelmed because I feel like I'm in control. The emotions that I have attached to my craft supplies are completely different than the emotions that I have attached to the baby items or my personal clothes. By just focusing on craft supplies, I already know what predictable emotions could be triggered, and that is the source of my creativity. because when I see anything, I imagine that I can create something beautiful out of trash. If I were to try to mix baby clothes with decluttering crafts, I know that my issues of my past miscarriages would be triggered with the baby clothes, which is triggering me to feel the past trauma of another past experience. I only want to focus on processing one area of those traumas, and whether it's the emotions of going through the crafts or the emotions of going through the baby stuff. Of course, I'm speaking from someone who's recovering in hoarding disorder. For the non-hoarders, your emotions might not be as heightened as ours, but they do still exist. Plus, when we declutter by category, we're keeping it predictable because we can see how much of each item that we have. If we have 10 pairs of scissors, we can then make the decision of downsizing that amount for what feels comfortable for us. These are just some of the self-soothing techniques I found to put in my decluttering toolbox, and together we'll be working to create even new ones. And now I'm so very happy to show you our tossy pile. For craft supplies, this is a huge amount. We even have an empty box. Now, I know that we would have more empty bins, but right now I'm using these bins as categories so that we can funnel it down even more, helping when we start to organize things. I also have the bins labeled, and they have little check marks to confirm that we already did these bins, because we're going to continue to chop away, declutter, downsize, and organize these crafts in the future. And my hope and my prayer is that this video motivated and encouraged you to declutter and clean something in your home today too.